I want to help you avoid picking the wrong MOS because you might think it's the right MOS. Maybe even your recruiter told you it's a great MOS and it's the right MOS for you. But then you get in the Army and you find out it's not the best MOS for you. Sometimes that can happen, and I'm going to tell you how to avoid that for 28 easy payments of $19.99. Okay, I'm just kidding. I'm going to give it to you for free. I mean, you're probably going to have to watch some YouTube ads, but that's okay. What's up, my friends? Welcome to an all new video. In this one, I want to give you some tips about picking your MOS to make sure that hopefully I say, you don't pick the wrong MOS. Because sometimes you might think you have the right MOS and you've done all your research and everything, and sometimes it just doesn't work out the way you thought it was going to work out. And sometimes there is no avoiding it. But nonetheless, I'll give you some tips to hopefully minimize the possibility of that. I joined the Army as an 88 Mike. It was not the MOS I wanted. I didn't really have a whole lot of options available to me, so I kind of just had to pick what I had available that didn't sound like it sucked as bad as some of the other options. I had to pick the lesser of the evils, I guess. But my plan wasn't to stay in the Army forever, or definitely not as long as I even did in the first place. I was originally just going to do my one contract for 4 years, get out and go to college, and then that turned into about 11 years. There's definitely different MOSs I would have probably had more fun, enjoyed a little bit more doing. Maybe even it would have made me stay in the Army longer because I was enjoying my time in the Army. But nonetheless, I was probably in an MOS that I did not enjoy. In fact, I always hated driving. I don't even know how I got stuck driving, but I always got stuck driving. You're gonna have to prepare yourself because a lot of times there's different jobs or different MOSs in the Army that look cool, but maybe not as cool as they looked. I like to pick on 11 Bravos a lot of times because that's definitely one of those where there's a lot of people that they wanted to join the Army, they wanted to be infantry, they thought they're going to be doing stuff they see in the movies, stuff they see in commercials, whatever the thing is, but then there's no conflict, there's no deployments, their units that they're attached to or they're assigned to is not deploying, and so they do nothing but training, and they're very disappointed because they're like, I thought I was going to do this, and I just did a lot of training just in case I have to go do this. Not to say an 11 Bravo is bad, but you got to understand that if there's no conflict going on, if your units that you are assigned to are not deploying to these conflicts, then yeah, you're not going to do that stuff. You're just going to do the training to prepare to do stuff. And some people enjoy that stuff. There's nothing wrong with it, right? Maybe you enjoy working with weapons. You want to do that training. You want to build those skills. You want to do that kind of stuff, even in a training environment, then cool. You just got to understand that if you are signing up to be an 11 Bravo because you want to be on the front lines in the thick of things in combat, but there isn't any conflicts going on, don't be disappointed when you don't get to do that stuff and you just continuously just train for it. That's really the case with any combat MOS. If you are interested in a combat MOS, something that doesn't really have a job outside of combat, that's what you're probably going to expect. You're probably going to do a lot of training for in the event that you do need to do that job in a combat environment, or you're gonna do a lot of like details, like maybe mowing lawns, cleaning, doing whatever random crap they need you to do in the motor pool or whatever the environment is. And for some individuals, like I said, you may be okay with that. You may be okay with getting the knowledge and experience of maybe doing some of the training and doing different things that go along with that MOS. But if you're specifically looking to do a combat MOS because you want to do that in a combat environment, but there is no combat going on, or you just don't end up deploying to that combat zone that is going on, just be aware that that's possibly going to be your life for a while. Now, if you're trying to pick an MOS that has an actual like garrison job, as I would call it, something that you have to do outside of a combat environment, then yeah, you're probably going to get to do your job all the time, right? Mechanics, you're going to be working on trucks. It doesn't matter if you're in a combat zone or not in a combat zone. You're going to work on trucks. HR, finance, military police, right? Cooks, all those individuals are going to get to do their job, right? But there's definitely certain jobs that really have a real job in combat, and the rest of the time they're just training. And I'm picking on this one so heavily because I've seen it so many times where soldiers tell me like, oh, I joined the Army because I wanted to do this and do that. And those are things that, happen in a combat zone type of thing. And they didn't deploy. They didn't go anywhere. And they're very disappointed in their Army career because they didn't get to do what they thought they were going to do. A lot of times if you're trying to get the right MOS, just think about what your interests are, right? Write them down. Write down what are you interested in? What are types of jobs that you would love to do? Maybe especially like write down jobs that you would do for free. If someone was like, hey, will you do this? And that lines up with a job in the Army, maybe that could be the job for you. An example of that could be like, maybe you like working on weapons, right? You want to help your buddies out, help your relatives out. They're having problems with their rifles, their pistols, and you like working on that stuff and you want to fix them and get them up and running for them type of thing and test them out and all that stuff. that's a job in the Army, and maybe that's a job for you. And you just got to kind of like narrow it down that way. Think about jobs that you want to do, that you would have fun doing, even if it was for free. Maybe it's for your friends, your family. Maybe that is equivalent to an MOS in the Army. Another good example of that could be cooks, right? You enjoy cooking for your friends and family. You're inviting them over, you're inviting family over, and you enjoy, preparing the meals for them and everything. You get the satisfaction out of that. That's a job in the Army. You can be a cook. However, that job in the Army does probably come with a lot of hours you have to work, right? Weekends, holidays, crazy shifts, all sorts of stuff. But nonetheless, if it's something you really enjoy, maybe it's a great choice for you. So just take the time to do some research and kind of think about things that you enjoy and try to see if maybe that's an equivalent, because there's a lot of jobs in the Army, and you might be surprised to find that some of the interests that you have, that you enjoy doing on the side, or you would enjoy doing, you think that you have an interest in or whatever, exists in the Army. There's a lot of jobs out there, and there's the possibility that it's out there. I mean, there's obviously some things that don't exist, right? You want to be a YouTuber, right? That's not really a thing in the Army. I mean, kind of. They do have video related things to do video production, but not exactly to be like a YouTuber type of thing. And there's probably a lot of things. So you just got to do your research. Just think about your interests and see if it aligns with a job in the Army. Another thing I want you to make sure to focus on is make sure the job that you're interested in specializes in the right thing that you want to do. And there's a few examples of that I've seen individuals kind of join this MOS because they think it's this, but it's not really that. That was a different MOS. One example I've seen of that is I've seen individuals come into the Army to be a 68 Whiskey combat medic because they think that, hey, I would love to be a nurse. I would like to do that kind of a thing. I want to join the Army in a medical field. I'm going to be a 68 Whiskey so that way later I can get a job to be a nurse in the civilian side. Well, there actually is an MOS for a nurse. That's a 68 Charlie. And so really, they should have tried to join as a 68 Charlie because 68 Whiskey gets a little bit of that experience, sure, but it's more like I guess the equivalent of working in an ER type of thing, right? You're doing more trauma type of stuff, in a combat environment. When you're not in a combat environment, it's kind of like still working, I guess, in an urgent care or something like that. But nonetheless, right, you got to make sure to do your homework to make sure that MOS you're interested in is really the job you're wanting and it's not something else. It's just, like that case, 68 Whiskey, it's in the medical field, but it's not exactly a nurse. That's a 68 Charlie. Another example of that I've seen is with a 12 Bravo. They just hear it's an engineer and they think that, cool, I'm interested in working with heavy machinery. I want to work in construction. I'm going to do that in the Army, so I'm going to be a 12 Bravo. Well, 12 Bravo is more kind of specialized with like explosives. They do obstacles. They do route clearance, all sorts of things along those lines. If you wanted to be construction, that's a different MOS. That's a 12 November that actually works the construction vehicles and does more things with construction on the engineer side. So that's also one that I've seen people get a little bit confused because they just hear engineer and they think that, oh, cool, I'm going to get to do engineering type of things. And there's other MOSs that kind of drill down specifically to certain aspects of engineering that you got to make sure to pay attention to. And that can be the case with a lot of MOSs. So whatever MOS you're interested in, do your homework to see if there's something similar in that field that's maybe more aligned with what you want to do. Because they have a lot of those series, right? 88 is transportation, and if you're specifically wanting to do something outside of driving trucks, then you got to look at some of the other 88 MOSs, the other 12 series MOSs, the other 35 series MOSs for whatever your job is, right? You think that you want to do this, well, make sure you research other MOSs in that same field to make sure that you're not picking the wrong one. For our viewers out there that are currently in the Army, or maybe even veterans out there, do you feel like you picked the right MOS? Are you happy with your selection you made based on your experience you had in the Army, what you wanted to do? Was it what you thought it was going to be, or did it end up working out horribly, or whatever the case was? I want to hear your story about your MOS, and was it really the MOS that was right for you? Let me know down in the comment section down below. For those of you that are thinking about joining the Army, what is the MOS you're interested in? What do you think it is? And then maybe some people in the comments have experience with that specific MOS, right? And they can tell you in the comments, yep, that's exactly what that MOS does, or nope, that is not exactly what that MOS does. That is more of this MOS that you probably want to do. For me, like I said, 88 Mike was just one of the selections I had of some other crappier selections, so I kind of went with the lesser of the evils. And if I was to pick something now, my interests are a little bit different than when I first joined, but probably pick something like a 25 Victor, which works with like video production type of stuff in the Army. And hell, maybe I would have had a great time doing that, and stayed in the Army much longer type of thing. But I really didn't develop the interest for video production stuff until about 2 or 3 years into my Army career, which I probably could have reclassed, but I don't know. I just didn't have the motivation to really want to go through the effort of doing that. But looking back, maybe that would have been the better choice. Maybe I should have reclassed to a different MOS. If you made it this far into the video, you're awesome. I appreciate you. If you're not subscribed, you should be subscribed, because here on this channel, I want to inform you about the United States Army, whether you're wanting to join, currently in, or you're a veteran. I want to help you out. So make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're hitting that thumbs up, share the video with someone that may be thinking about trying to pick what their MOS is going to be, and maybe they need some help trying to narrow some things down to make sure they're making the right choice. Make sure they're well informed. But nonetheless, I appreciate you for hanging out and watching. I'm Christopher Chaos, and I'll see you next time. See ya.